say anything, you let me know.
That's the most excellent idea, sire. Is it?
And you taught him what he needed to be a man. I'll give you that. Because most men ain't man enough to do what you did.
You've reached Kicking It with Key C show. You reached another episode of the Kicking It with Key C show, and today is a celebration, a discussion, a remembrance of one of our great leaders, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who also was a Morehouse alumna, which is my alma mater. Martin Luther King had such a major impact on so many people in our lives, in this country. Change. He was advocate for change, and there were a lot of people and things that were actually influenced by this great man. Now today is the recognized day, I guess, as the national holiday here in this country. His actual birthday was the 15th. So today is the national holiday that the United States decided to utilize as the national holiday, the Monday of the month where people actually can get off and have a day of service or whatever. I didn't live in the time period where King actually existed, but I know, speaking with my elders and my family and people who were directly influenced by the life of this great man, the sentiment of who he was as a leader was undescribable. And then the death of this great man was also a very memorable event for those people during that time period. During the assassination of Dr. King, the influence that he had on this country was insurmountable. We're going to go and dig a bit deeper into who this man was. We're going to drop some music. I actually had the intro of Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday song, which was actually dedicated to Stevie Wonder. To Martin Luther King, Dr. King's life. I read a very nice piece written by Coretta Scott King, Martin's wife, and she basically broke down what it is, the meaning of the King holiday. So what she said was, Martin Luther King Jr. holiday celebrates the life and legacy of a man who brought hope and healing to America. We commemorate as well the timeless values he taught us through his example. The values of courage, truth, justice, compassion, dignity, humility, and service that so radiantly defined Dr. King's character and empowered his leadership. On this holiday, we commemorate the universal unconditional love, forgiveness, and nonviolence that empowered his revolutionary spirit. We commemorate Dr. King's inspiring words because his voice and his vision filled a great void in our nation and answered our collective longing to become a country that truly lived by its noblest principles. Yet, Dr. King knew that it wasn't enough just to talk the talk, that he had to walk the walk for his words to be credible. And so we commemorate on this holiday the man of action, who put his life on the line for freedom and justice every day. The man who braved threats and jail and beatings and who ultimately paid the highest price to make democracy a reality for all Americans. She goes on a lot further, but let's break down what I just read there. All right. There's always great people in our past, but those who are martyrs, those who made sacrifices of themselves for a greater cause, and I'm not talking about like a suicide bomber or something like that, because they are intent on destruction by any means necessary. But what I mean by this is a martyr, someone who puts their life on the line to see that their people, to see that their point, that their struggle, that what they are fighting for is done by all means necessary, even if it means the loss of life, even if it means jail, even if it means beatings, even if it means hatred against you and your family. King actually was this man. Dr. King honored the great people who came in front of him. Dr. King was one who set the path and set the footsteps for us to have an African American president today, because at one point we weren't even able to vote. So we now have these luxuries and these rights. She goes on and says, the King holiday honors the life and contributions of America's greatest champion of racial justice and equality, the leader who not only dreamed like a colorblind society, but who also led a movement that achieved historic reforms to help make it a reality. So on this day, Dr. King's great dream of a vibrant, multiracial nation united in justice, peace, and reconciliation, a nation that has a place at the table for children of every race and room at the end for every needy child. We are called on this holiday not merely to honor, but to celebrate the values of equality, tolerance, and interracial sister and brotherhood he so compellingly expressed in his great dream for America. All right, we're going to pause there with with Coretta's letter here. We're going to continue on. We're going to go into one of the speeches that King made. It was one of his last speeches, actually. It was, I've been to the mountaintop. So we're going to go ahead and play that. And then when we return, we'll continue with our celebration of Dr. King. All right, let's see. Get this queued up here.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I was in the middle of reading a speech from Coretta Scott King, and I'm going to pick up where I left off at. She was speaking about the reason for the King holiday. She said, it is a day of interracial and intercultural cooperation and sharing. No other day of the year brings so many people from different cultural backgrounds together in such a vibrant spirit of brother and sisterhood. Whether you are African American, Hispanic, or Native American, whether you are Caucasian or Asian American, you are part of the great dream Martin Luther King Jr. had for America. This is not a black holiday. It is a people's holiday. And it is the young people of all races and religions who hold the keys to the fulfillment of his dream. Alright, let me pause right there. Very interesting here. I live in the city of Atlanta. It seems like we have a lot more companies and corporations that celebrate here in our city than nationally. I work for a national corporation based out of Atlanta. They are a company who has high values and morals, but they celebrated this day. I don't think that the business itself is closed, but the corporate office itself is closed in celebration in memory of Dr. King. While on the other hand, my wife works for a company, international company, and it's business as usual for them. And it's not no knock on that company itself, but they didn't instill or didn't promote or recognize this day as a national holiday. And the same thing has happened with some past jobs that I've had. I've had other jobs and it was the same exact way. Worked at a lot of the major corporations here in this city. And I'll say the majority of my jobs, if they're in the public sector, if they're Fortune 500, they usually don't celebrate this day. And you may be listening to this while you're at work as well. And I just feel like it's a shame. Especially, it's thought of, okay, we'll give you this personal holiday, and then they'll find, okay, the black people are taking off for this day. It's not just about black people celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King, because it's way bigger, as Coretta just said. Let me continue reading what she said. We commemorate on this holiday the ecumenical leader and visionary who embraced the unity of all faiths in love and truth. And though we take patriotic pride that Dr. King was an American, On this holiday, we must also commemorate the global leader who inspired nonviolent liberation movements around the world. Indeed, on this day, programs commemorating my husband's birthday are being observed in more than 100 nations. The King holiday celebrates Dr. King's global vision of the world house, a world whose people and nations had triumphed over poverty, racism, war, and violence. The holiday celebrates his vision of solidarity, his insistence that all faith had something meaningful to contribute to building the beloved community. We're going to go a little further away from this and go into something I found. It was on Mashable, but it was 6 ways to meaningfully honor Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And the reason why they wrote this is because it said too often Martin Luther King Jr. is seen as a day off and little else. And the author of this piece, her name was Katie Duperry, she wrote this about a day ago. She said, aside from grade school lessons painting a vague picture of King's life and activism, the majority of us, especially white people, remain detached from his impact. He's a historical name we've learned to recognize, coupled with bits and pieces of facts from a whitewashed history. But truly appreciating his work is hardly on the radar, even on a day made to honor him. It's an uncomfortable reality of how we've taught to value, or rather not value, one of the most influential black leaders in history. It's all merely surface, a story we don't see as extending beyond the crisp pages of an elementary textbook. But King was a racial justice leader and organizer whose influence is still felt today, which deserves to be meaningfully recognized on MLK Day and beyond. To help fully honor King and his legacy, here are 6 ways to celebrate a man and a movement that continue to challenge and break barriers. Number 1, volunteer in a way that gives back to the black community directly. The King Center, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving King's memory, established by his late wife Coretta, advocates for MLK Day to be a day on and not a day off, calling for those who have the day off work to honor King's life through volunteerism. While MLK Day is talked about as a national day of service, often it stops at just that, merely talk. Instead of using the day as an excuse to sleep in or binge watch a new Netflix series, commit to take steps to support your local community directly, especially local communities of color. Number 2, recognize and value the full, comprehensive history of King and the racial justice movement. Many of us know a partial story of Martin Luther King Jr., one that focuses on certain parts of his character appealing to a certain historical narrative. His virtue of nonviolence, for example, is exploited as a way to discourage rebellion in the face of racism, something that King actually saw as an obligation. So it says take time to learn the history of King, pushing beyond the whitewashed textbooks of public school classrooms. Read books by King, by his family, and black authors and leaders to broaden your scope. Learn his views by reading his words. This is number 3. This is for white folks. Use this as an opportunity to work on your allyship. And what is allyship? Offer resources, platform, sustainable communication, and then get out the way. That is allyship. Number 4, recognize and appreciate the strides King made while also recognizing the change still needed. This whole Black Lives Matter aspires to reclaim MLK Jr.'s legacy. Number 5, commit to starting more meaningful conversations about racial justice. And then lastly, take action against racial injustice. And they say action is always a risk, especially when you're an activist of color pushing against a society deeply privileging whiteness. But action is an important agent of change for those who feel empowered to challenge an unjust system in society. Black Lives Matter events are some of the most well-known throughout the country, but plug into your own community to find out what community activists of color are organizing in your local area. Even if you aren't the type to be on the front lines of a mass protest, supporting those who are by helping is especially a necessary thing here. Let's see. Like I said, Dr. King actually is alumnus of my school, Morehouse College, here in Atlanta, Georgia. You could actually get involved with some programs there organized by the school. There's so many things. And I think there's a bonus other things that can be done past the 6 that I named. We will continue on, like I said. We're going to take us a little commercial break. We'll come back from the commercial. We'll go into a discussion from Andrew Young, who also marched on the front lines with Dr. King, and then we will be back from there. And thank you for tuning in. All right, let's pause for a break.
Whole Team Enterprises, a full-service graphics and marketing company that will take your company's image to the next level, specializing in graphic design, web hosting, printing, video editing, event planning, and more. They are cost-effective, professional, and have an awesome quick turnaround. Please give them a call at 888-755-0036 or visit them online at www.wholeteam.com. Be sure to get your car serviced by the professionals at ICN Services, located in the Buckhead area of Atlanta. They are a full-service automobile concierge service who are an on-site automobile detailing provider with the advantages of their come-to-you service. Your car can get their needs taken care of while you continue your day. They will take your vehicle to appointments, inspections, repairs, returns, and more. Find them online at www.itscleannow.com or reach them at 404-934-0675. Go see my guys at Platinum Auto Accessories in Lithonia, Georgia. They can get your car audio needs tight. In addition to the audio enhancements, they specialize in visual enhancements for your car as well. Lighting, rims, alarm systems, remote starts, and more. Visit Kevin and James with some of the best deals in the Atlanta metro area. Conveniently located at 2648 Lithonia Industrial Boulevard off I-20 and the Evans Mill exit. Also give them a call at 678-323-7888. Mention this ad for a special discount. Friends of the Kicking It with Key C show.
You've reached Kicking It with Key C show.
It's one of the reasons why I stick with those kids as they raise questions about their father's assassination. Because even as little kids, 3 to 10, they had no bitterness, no resentment. In fact, it was Dexter who said, Daddy wouldn't want us to hate whoever did this. In fact, he said, that man, whoever did it couldn't have known my father, because he would have known that my father was just trying to help people. And for kids to have that much sensitivity so young meant that they were very fragile and that they would need support at critical times in their lives. And I don't think I was there enough, But whenever I could be there and whatever I could do for them or with them and with Coretta, I mean, it was easy because I would have done it for anybody. And for Martin Luther King's children, see, it was just like Walter Young's children.
Was there, in terms of a sense of, I don't know, responsibility or connection or whatever, was there anything in terms of there but for the grace of God go I, in that, as I understand it, you were moments away from being right next to Dr. King when he was shot?
Yeah. Well, we always thought, in fact, we used to always joke that people were going to be shooting at him and get me, and then he'd preach my funeral. You know, and sort of clown about it. And so there was really never much fear of death. And at that time, I would have been tickled to death if it had been me. I was much more afraid of living in these United States without him than I was of dying.
You would have been tickled to death to have
Sure.
it be you rather than him.
I mean, I always did see death as a reward, as a blessing, as something that comes at the end of whenever you're through with your time on this earth.
Then we started our struggle together. Things were going well for the first few days, but then about 10 or 15 days later, after the white people in Montgomery knew that we meant business, they started doing some nasty things. They started making nasty telephone calls, and came to the point that some days more than 40 telephone calls would come in, threatening my life, the life of my family, the life of my children. I took it for a while in a strong manner, but I never will forget one night very late. It was around midnight, and you can have some strange experiences at midnight. I had been out meeting with the steering committee all that night, and I came home. My wife was in the bed, and I immediately crawled into bed to get some rest, to get up early the next morning to try to keep things going. And immediately the telephone started ringing, and I picked it up. On the other end was an ugly voice. That voice said to me in substance, "Nigger, we are tired of you and your mess now. And if you aren't out of this town in 3 days, we're going to blow your brains out and blow up your house." I had heard these things before, but for some reason that night it got to me. I turned over and I tried to go to sleep, but I couldn't sleep. I was frustrated, bewildered. And then I got up and went back to the kitchen, and I started warming some coffee, thinking that coffee would give me a little relief. And then I started thinking about many things. I pulled back on the theology and philosophy that I had just studied in the universities, trying to give philosophical and theological reasons for the existence and the reality of sin and evil. But The answer didn't quite come there. I sat there and thought about a beautiful little daughter who had just been born about a month earlier. We have 4 children now, but we only had 1 then. She was the darling of my life. I'd come in night after night and see that little gentle smile. And I sat at that table thinking about that little girl and thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from any minute. And I started thinking about a dedicated, devoted, and loyal wife who was over there asleep. She could be taken from me, I could be taken from her. And I got to the point that I couldn't take it any longer. I was weak. And something said to me, you can't call on Daddy now. He's up in Atlanta 175 miles away. You can't even call on Mama now. You got to call on that something and that person that your daddy used to tell you about. That power that can make a way out of no way. I discovered then that religion had to become real to me, and I had to know God for myself. And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I never will forget it. Oh, yes, I prayed a prayer, and I prayed out loud that night. I said, Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause that we represent is right. But Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now, I'm faltering, I'm losing my courage. It seemed at that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world. I tell you, I've seen the lightning flash. I've heard the thunder roll. I've felt sin breakers dashing, trying to conquer my soul. But I heard the voice of Jesus saying still to fight on. He promised never to leave me, never to leave me alone. No, never alone. No, never alone. He promised never to leave me. Never to leave me alone. Sometimes I feel discouraged. And I don't mind telling you this morning that sometimes I feel discouraged. I felt discouraged in Chicago. As I moved through Mississippi and Georgia and Alabama, I feel discouraged. Living every day under the threat of death, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under extensive criticisms, even from Negroes, I feel discouraged sometimes. Yes, sometimes I feel discouraged and feel my works in vain. But then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. God bless you.
Oh, yeah, we're back with the Kicking It with KC show. What an awesome speech that was. It sent a sensation through me. Just to hear the powerful words that he delivered. He was a eloquent leader with his speeches. He delivered words so profusely, so profoundly, be able to reach into different spirits. He himself held himself with dignity and charisma, and was able to permeate through all kinds of souls and ethnicities and nationalities and people all over the world. So that was one thing, is the charismatic character that Dr. King was himself. I'm proud to say that he is a alumni of my college, Morehouse, here in Atlanta. Let's go ahead and continue on. I know we're getting close to the end of my broadcast here, but Dr. King was so much more. This day is so much more than a quote unquote black people's holiday. And that's what I was just reading from Coretta Scott King's speech on how this is a day of service on, not a day off. A day on, not a day off is a proper term. A day for you to go out, for you to do something. And if you aren't able to do something, get out and volunteer today. If it's too late in the day and now you want to do something, I mean, there's other things you can do. There's ways that you can still be beneficial by reaching out to your children, to your nieces, your nephews, about the King legacy. If not about the King legacy, about something that is going on here in our community, our local communities, how to be better, how to reach one, how to teach one, how to be a positive instrument of change in our communities and in our lives. We are living in a time right now. Look, I borrowed it from one of my good podcast camaraderies, Doug Stewart. He actually always says that about one of his teachers. We're living in a time, I think he said, I don't know, the guy's name was Fessa. We're living in a time, Fessa. That's what he would say. But we are living in a time here where there's a lot of racial tension, racial strife, things going on, kids being molested, kids being killed. It's so much stuff going on here. We've got to stand up. We've got to take our communities back. We have to. We have to take our lives back. We got to take our country back. We got to take this world back. Sadly, if you don't believe in something, we could be in our last days from what I'm hearing and reading. But if this is to be your last day on earth, how do you want to be remembered? Do you see how King is being remembered? He is being remembered by the positive things that he did and said and made happen. He's being remembered. This is his day of remembrance. How will your day of remembrance be? How will you be remembered? What legacy are you leaving? What are you leaving for your children? All right. We're getting close to my time. I am going to wrap this up. I'm going to leave out with one more song. It's been real. Do something. Remember this day. Keep positivity in your life. Keep God first in your life. Be an agent of change in your communities and your families. And leave more than just debt in yourself. Leave a legacy. Leave something for your kids. Leave something for your kids. Leave a message. Leave more. Want more. Be more. Alright. I'm out. Thanks for kicking it with Key Remember, you can find me on keyc.com and also on the Kicking It with Kesey app found in your mobile stores. Thank you for all sponsors and everybody that tuned in here on this King celebration. And we are out.
Get up, stand up. Stand up for your right. Get up.